break that we've had. Right, if we go on to item 11, we'll go to public speakers first. Mr. R. Leonard or J. Leonard of 1 Glenorgle Road. If you'd like to come down, sir, speak. Whenever you're ready, sir, the clock will start. Okay, you've got 5 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon, councillors, and thank you for your opportunity to speak at the meeting today. Today, I represent not just myself, but the residents of Glenorgle Road, Merthyr Road, and Boham Avenue in opposition to this development. Our first objection is over unsafe access. The new development will sit on the inside of a very sharp bend with poor visibility, so exiting will pose a serious risk to pedestrians. Glenorgle Road is a busy pedestrian thoroughfare for pupils of Oldcastle and Bryntegg schools, with a heavy footfall of pupils, both immediately local and from the Broadlands estate, which is why this route was actually designated a safe route to school several years ago by this very council. The Highways report only addresses the issue of safety to cars. In doing so, it fails to address the important issue of pedestrians, and in particular that of school children using the pavement. Failing to acknowledge this means the council have not been presented with the true picture and will put children at risk of serious injury. Our second objection is over scale and design. The proposed development contravenes Strategic Policy SP2, which states that development should be of an appropriate scale, size and prominence, and of the highest quality design. It does not respect local context, and in particular the scale and proportions of surrounding buildings, and will be completely out of character. The vast majority of houses on Glenorgle Road, where the house will be located, are of 1930s design or earlier. This development will be modern design, 3 stories and over 10 meters high, greatly in excess of other houses in the street. The planning report only calls the design of reasonable quality and fails to explain how a 3-story house is acceptable and in context. With its modern design, extreme height and small plot, it would significantly alter the fabric of the area and amount to serious cramming in what is a low-density road. The garden would also be very small for a 3-story dwelling. Our third objection is over privacy. This development will seriously impact on the privacy of residents in Merthyr Road. With living space on 3 floors and a small rear garden, the development will allow unobstructed views over their properties and rear gardens, which have been private and sheltered since construction. We believe that the proposed development is a direct contravention of planning law. The design does not afford adequate privacy for the occupants of adjacent properties, particularly with regard to their right to the quiet enjoyment of garden amenities. Our fourth concern relates to environmental impact. The design and access statement admits that the development will result in the loss of 4 mature trees up to 14 meters high, 3 of which are protected. Conveniently, the tree survey glosses over the protection orders and identifies the trees as low quality. We believe that this throws into doubt the robustness of the survey and its conclusions, especially as 2 of the trees currently house nesting birds. The garden at number 82 and ours is also populated by bats at night, which are likely to be roosting in the trees. The recent bat survey conveniently only addresses the roosting potential of 1 of the 4 trees and fails to carry out a fairly simple evening observation, which would have confirmed the presence of bats. The replacement tree planting recommended by the planning report will not achieve the same visual amenity benefit until many decades into the future, and that's if they can fit any trees in the plot. Nor will it restore the environmental damage. My final concern relates to dominance. SPGO2 states that no development should unreasonably dominate the outlook of an adjoining property. Despite all the neighbours' concerns, the developers resubmitted plans with a house still over 10 meters high and 3 stories. The height of the building greatly exceeds what is reasonable, and the proposed development, due to its height and mass, would have an unacceptably adverse effect on the amenity of our property and the surrounding area through its visually overbearing impact. I find it incomprehensible that the planning report states that the rear garden of 1 Glenorgle Road is not dominated by the new dwelling, when 2/3 of the eastern aspect of our garden will become a 10-meter high wall. This has to be considered dominating, surely, by any reasonable person. In conclusion, this committee has been presented with a report which contains limited facts and baseless conclusions, and its recommendations should be rejected. I have one last plea. The committee acts as the conscience of the council. Do the applications benefit the community, or do they benefit the developer? By rejecting this application, the committee has the chance to preserve one of Bridgend's traditional houses and gardens. By approving it, they simply profit a property developer from outside the borough. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll now go on to the... Oh, yeah. Is it Mr. TDC and N. Allen, or CJ2 Architecture?
Online?
I don't know if they're online. Are they online?
No?
No. Okay. Well,
Not you.
yeah. Down to you. Give the report.
Good afternoon, councillors. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Ewan Sexton, Principal Planning Officer. The application seeks consent for the construction of a detached dwelling within the rear garden of 82 Merthyr Road. The site has a long history of outline planning consents for the construction of a dwelling on this plot. The proposed dwelling will front onto Glenorga Road, where an existing access into the site is located. This currently provides access to a detached garage and a driveway at the rear of 82 Merthyr Road. The proposed property is set back within the site, with a garden area to the front and the rear, alongside space for 3 car parking spaces on the driveway and within the garage. The property is set in from the site's boundaries and is considered to be of a scale which is appropriate to this plot. Due to the size of the existing garden of the host dwelling, sufficient amenity space can be provided for both the new and the existing dwellings. The proposed dwelling will be set slightly further back than the building line of the adjacent property at number 1 Glenorga Road, which itself is set back from the next dwelling along to the west, which is 1 Boham Avenue. 4 trees on the site are to be removed in order to accommodate the development, 3 of which are protected by TPO. A tree report has been submitted which confirms that the trees are of a poor quality and recommends that replacement planting is undertaken. The conditions included which requires a tree planting scheme to be submitted prior to any works taking place on the site. There are also conditions included which require details of on-site ecological enhancements, surface water and foul water drainage to be submitted for approval. A number of objections have been received from local residents, which have been summarised and responded to within the report. Residents have raised concerns with the access to the site, which is situated close to the bend in the road and in an area where on-street parking is prevalent. It's important to note that there is an existing vehicular access in this location. Any consent granted will allow us greater control over this existing access, with conditions included to ensure that adequate vision displays are provided for both vehicles and pedestrians. As the application proposes sufficient off-street parking within the site, the highways officer is content that the scheme is acceptable, subject to conditions. In terms of the visual impact of the development, objections were received which suggested that the property would not be in keeping with the surrounding area. While the dwelling does differ from the majority of the surrounding houses, which are typically semi-detached properties with hipped roofs, there are examples of individually designed dwellings adjacent to the application site and directly opposite, photographs of which are included within the report. A more contemporary dwelling was originally proposed, which has since been amended following negotiation with the applicant, with the current design and layout considered to be appropriate. With regards to neighbouring amenity, neighbours raised concerns surrounding the loss of privacy, as well as the overbearing impact of the development. Due to the size of the gardens of the properties on Merthyr Road, there is plenty of distance between the rear windows of the new dwelling and the opposing windows and boundaries of the neighbouring properties to the rear. The separation distances are in excess of the minimum amount that we would ordinarily look for. Any side-facing windows which directly face neighbouring property do not serve habitable rooms, and as a result, their impact on the privacy of neighbours will be negligible. In terms of its impact on the adjacent neighbouring property, the single-storey element of the dwelling has been situated on the southwestern side of the site, closest to 1 Glenorga Road, with the bulk of the property set off from the boundary by almost 4.5 metres. Due to its orientation to the east of 1 Glenorga Road, any loss of sunlight for the neighbouring property as a result of the development will be limited to the very early morning. The layout and orientation of the proposed development ensures that the neighbouring property and its garden will not be overshadowed to an extent that it would significantly impact on the residential amenities of its occupiers. Thanks for your time.
Right, thank you for that. You can see the officer's recommendation, page 79. It's to be granted. Can somebody formally move in second, please?
Move.
Well, one of you move and one of you second.
Second, Richard.
Right, thank you. Simon, did you move it?
I did.
Thank you. Any questions to the officers? Simon, you have got your hand up.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I have a couple of questions. So, one of our considerations is this building in keeping with the local surroundings? And I'm not happy that we don't have any back elevation, and we don't have any real idea about what this house will look like when it's finished. I note that we have two examples of independently designed buildings. I think I'm just scrolling down on page 73, but both of those are just standard houses. They're not three-story houses, so they're not really examples that we would take. I also have a problem with, if it's in keeping with the surroundings, I would expect that building to be somewhere between the lowest house in the area and the highest house in that area. For it to be 1.5 meters, I think it is higher than any other house in the area, immediately says to me that it's not actually in keeping with the height of the houses that surround it. So I am very concerned about this not being in keeping and being over prominent in the local environment, because it is 1.5 meters higher than anything in that area. And to me, that's not in keeping with the surroundings.
Thank you, Simon. The officers just put pictures up of the front, sides and back elements on. Can you see them, Simon?
I can, thank you very much.
Right, okay.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor. The elevations are on the screen now. As I mentioned, we did go through negotiations with the developer, the applicant, I'm sorry, with regards to the design of the scheme. A more contemporary scheme was originally proposed, and we've asked them to tone that down, which they have done. They removed kind of the use of cladding, those apex windows and that sort of thing, which have been removed from the proposal. In terms of the height, I think the report states that the height of the dwelling at approximately 10 metres is about 1 to 1.5 metres taller than the majority of the dwellings in the area. But that's not to say that it will be the tallest dwelling in the area. For example, there's a property, I believe it's the corner property of Glenorgh Road and Merthyr Road, which is going to be of approximately the same site. So it's not going to tower over all the dwellings in the area, but it is taller than the majority of them.
Are you happy with that, Simon?
I'm not happy, but I'm content, if you see what I mean. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark.
Sorry, wrong one. I think I would go along with the previous speaker regarding it being incongruous in the street scene. I mean, we talk about 1.5 meters higher than perhaps the rest of the properties in that area, which is 5 foot. I mean, 5 foot is quite a considerable height difference. But my concern is the access on the bend. That is more my concern. I don't know whether we've got any pictures. I know we've got pictures in the report, but are there any pictures?
So that's obviously Google Street View image of the existing access into the site.
So can I ask, that is opposite the access basically to Hillgam, isn't it, to the school? Opposite? No, it's further along, is it? I'm trying to picture whereabouts it actually is.
So this is an aerial image. We've got Merthyr Road coming down here, Glenorgh Road.
That's Merthyr Road, yeah.
Yeah, there's the corner of Glenorgh Road leading onto Boham Avenue, and the property is on the corner of Glenorgh Road.
Right, okay. So I think, the speaker did mention about school pupils and that it's a safe route to school. I mean, have we taken that on board? That I'm trying to get the actual location. I mean, pupils will walk through Newbridge Fields to get to Hillgam, won't they? Yeah. So they'll be coming along around that area. So, what thought has been given to, vehicles exiting and accessing that new property, which would be on is it a blind bend?
No. Laura, we'll get the highways officer to answer your question now on the safety issues. Rob?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Rob Morgan, the Principal Officer, Highway Development Control. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Rob Morgan, the Principal Officer, Highway Development Control. In considering this application, we have to bear in mind that there is an existing access at this location, which could be used, it has no restrictions on it, which could be used multiple times a day by the current property. It's basically a second driveway that serves for 2 spaces and a garage. So the incidences of vehicles coming in and out of here is an existing situation as far as we're concerned. The access is a legitimate use. We have sought to impose a condition asking for 1x1 pedestrian vision displays with nothing above 0.6 meters either side of the access, which is an improvement to the existing, which will provide vision to and of pedestrians. That will enable the vehicle to proceed slowly out of the driveway. As was witnessed on the Google Street View image, it's not just a normal footway width, there's a verge there as well. So there's vision there, which is considered to be appropriate for the location that the access is served in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor John?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to agree with Simon Griffiths' points regarding height and the other points he made. The other thing, which sits a bit uncomfortable with me now, I've been listening to the speaker, when the main agenda seems to be everyday climate change, are we comfortable that we're going to be removing trees with TPOs? It seems to be quite a difficult thing to correspond to. A tree preservation order, is it meaningless or?
Anyone?
Yeah, thanks for your question. So a tree report was submitted which confirmed that the trees to be removed are of poor quality. One of them has, and you're going to have to forgive me because I can't remember exactly what it was, but it has some kind of dieback issue, so it would need to be removed sooner rather than later, regardless. And we will be looking for, as I said, a tree replanting scheme as well as ecological enhancements to the site to try and compensate for the loss.
I understand what you're saying, the trees are of poor quality. I'm not disputing that, but poor quality doesn't mean that they need to completely be removed. If one's got ash dieback, then I understand. But poor quality arborists can bring a tree back to life.
Okay, well, this was the opinion of the arborist who submitted the reports, was that they were of poor quality, and that their loss and subsequent replacement wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you for that report. Okay, Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to declare one personal interest as the objector was talking on behalf of all residents of Bowen Avenue. I'm not sure which ones he's talking about, but my auntie and uncle live on Bowen Avenue, so I just want to put that out there as an overcautious, hopefully, point of view. But I know this area quite well. I've ran between Grove Road and Glenago Road and Bowen Avenue most of my life, between my grandfather's house and my auntie and uncle's house. It's as far as I can remember, that plot's always been there, and it's never had a house on it. The bend on Glenago Road is it's tight. It always has been. When I moved into driving, when I was visiting, I always used to drive up Dilwyn Gardens because it is just that awkward. But that's my personal view. It's that the houses there are nice. I'm very proud of my uncle's house, but this does seem to be quite larger than what is already there in existence. I appreciate the officers putting up the house sizes today, but they weren't in the pack before, so it has been quite difficult to try and assess this. I was of the opinion, I know it's a very large garden at 82, so does a house being there really necessitate an objection? But then now looking at the scales of it, it would be, barring barring yes, fine, one house, this would be larger than any other house in the area, in my opinion. I know traffic officers have said that, and quite rightly, you've got the access to the rear. I can never remember that being used, but as a frequent visitor. So, I mean, is there, you know, has that been superseded really just by lack of use, and whether we should be looking at it again on highway safety? I mean, cars are getting bigger, cars are becoming more frequent. You know, yes, fine, I can listen into that we are slowing the roads down in 10 days to 20 miles an hour. That might mitigate things, and I respect that. But in the years I visited that area, and there's been many of them, I've never seen a car come out of that. So it's that sort of question. Does that still stand in that time period where I've never seen a car come out of it? So it is a very tight corner, and so that's my view, that is a risk, whether it's been recorded or not, and the height of the house is bar one, not in keeping with the area. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, just to clarify, you're asking, because there's no evidence that you can provide that the access has been used, whether it's a legitimate access? Yeah. Okay. The access has got a legitimate the access into the plot has got a legitimate access out onto the carriageway. There's a properly constructed dropped curb access there, permanently surfaced, and it can be used over and over again without any it's an unfettered access. In fairness, in looking at this application, we've actually imposed a condition for vision displays, pedestrian vision displays either side of it, which don't currently exist. So we've actually sought to improve an existing situation.
It is, yes, I understand that it's there. The fact of, and I am only 38 years of age, but I mean, I cannot remember that space ever being used for vehicular access. I understand the argument you're making. It's there, it's unfettered. You can't, you know, but I think, you know, as residents are, that is not a point to be concerned of, because it just frankly is never used. You're not coming round that corner because, you know, is Mr. Jones suddenly going to reverse his car out of that area? I'm grateful to hear that you're putting mitigating circumstances in, but in my opinion, it has not been used for so long. It's just not an access. Am I making sense? I mean, you know, the law is the law, but you know, it is just because it just hasn't been used in such a long time. I think, you know, it's going to produce now a new element that residents just aren't used to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Rob. Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I understand what you're saying, Councillor, but in land use planning terms, that is an access. It's extant. It can be used. The person that lives there may move out. Another person could come in who likes cars and could use that access unfettered for any number of vehicle movements. So it is in planning terms. There will be nothing we could do about that situation. So that is the precedent, and I have to advise. And members need to be aware that this site has a long history of planning consents using that access as well. And if you look at the report, you will see that there are a number of planning applications there. This is the latest in a string of applications that have all been given conditional consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Both the officers have spoken about the access. I've looked at it on Google Street, but I actually turned the corner that you didn't. And it is, I used to walk there, up the steps, across the road, round to Brinteg School, and I've always thought of it as a very quiet area. And it is a blind corner. If you were to come round there a little bit quicker than the new 20 miles an hour, then it is a blind corner. I'd like to put both officers up by saying this is the access. So what assurances could you give me that that would stay the access? Or would the fence be taken down and a huge access be put there? Because to me, looking at it, and I wish there was a site visit that we could look at it properly, but it's not. We're looking at it from Google Maps, we're looking at it from diagrams, trying to remember it from memory. But how much of the access is going to be widened? Because to me, it looks like that's access, back access to a garage, a residential car garage. So you're now talking about where it would be one car going in. You're now talking about we can use that access and we can create the development there. So could you just clarify a little bit more? When you say this is the access that we're talking about, could you tell me going forward, is that the access that you're going to use?
Ewan? Oh, John, do you want to answer that?
Do you want to come in?
Chair. Yeah, it is part of the plans that have been submitted for approval, so we will expect the scheme to be implemented in accordance with the approved plans, and if they're not, then obviously we could do them under breach of condition notice or take enforcement action against them and seek resolution from that then. But as far as we're concerned, the access is as per this diagram on the screen now, and it will serve the property, single dwelling, as it could serve the dwelling to the rear, who, as John said, might have 2, 3, 4, 5 cars. So it's very much in the same level of use as other properties in this area, because it is a residential area. It's not going to be a commercial use. It's going to be used on a residential basis, domestic basis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You happy with that? Okay, thank you. Is that a legacy hand there, Steve, please?
Oh, yeah. One thing, Jay, I don't know if the officers have picked up that the local ward member, Councillor Ian Williams, has made a comment, yeah. He has made a comment, yeah. but I haven't heard that being read out. I don't know if that's something that he wanted reading out, or is it just for us to look at on paper?
Yeah, the comment came in when the application was first submitted, so it's not in reference to the committee meeting. He just commented on the application, and obviously it's included in the report.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. There's no other person that wants to speak, as not indicated. So it's been moved and seconded. Are we all in favour of this application?
No.
So do we want to take a vote in the way we've done earlier on this morning? Okay? Just check then.
We all happy with that? Yeah? Okay then. Whenever you're ready, can you call out the names, please?
Yeah, hold on a second. Just to reiterate, this will be of a recommendation, which is to grant consent subject to conditions, as you've got them in the report, and again, for, against, abstain, as Mike calls your name, please. Thank you.
Councillor Alan Wathen.
Yes, against.
Councillor Anthony Barrow.
Abstain.
Councillor Dave Harrison.
Abstain.
Councillor Della Hughes.
Against.
Councillor Jonathan Pratt.
Against.
Councillor Mark John.
Against.
Councillor Noah Clark.
Abstain.
Councillor Richard Collins.
Abstain.
Councillor Richard Granville.
For.
Councillor Simon Griffiths.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Easterbrook.
Against.
And Councillor William Kendall.
Against.
That's everyone.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So that's 1 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against, and 4 abstentions. So that was a substantial recommendation, Chair. That's obviously lost.
Right.
what under the rules of the committee which operates by, we would need to defer this to the next meeting, but we need reasons for refusal based on planning reasons, which would be, and those reasons would then form the debate or the subject of a debate next time. So clearly the original report would be reproduced as an appendix. So I wonder if members could suggest the reasons that they have in mind for saying no to this, and well, I think I would probably could do that next time, couldn't you? Nominate a lead. But if it would be handy for the or useful for the lead a member to take the lead on this, to liaise with officers as well between this meeting and the next, as to the reasons for refusal. So, with that in mind, could I ask members for that, please?
Well, all the people that objected, can you decide amongst yourselves? We want.
There are hands.
All right. I think, yes, Stephen?
Hands still up. Yeah, I'm certainly willing to put something forward. I don't think that development is in keeping with the local area. Despite all the problems that have been talked about, the safety issues, it is a very mature area, and just looking at the plans, I don't believe that it is in keeping with the area.
Thank you for that. Jonathan, please.
Yes, Chair. I'd like to explore further the height of the recommended property in relation to the houses in the direct area and further, and also a more better established investigation into highway safety on that corner. Thank you, Chair.
Simon?
What was he asking?
Well, hang on a second, Simon. Pardon? Assessment of the height.
No. Just to clarify, sorry, Councillor, you mentioned there's two issues there. There's height of the development in relation to the surrounding area, and you mentioned something about further investigation.
Further investigation into highway safety on that corner. Whether we just give a better look at it or something. They're my two concerns, so that's what I'm bringing up. I'm happy to have a discussion with officers later on how we can achieve, if we can achieve these. But I mean, that's from a layperson, councillor, that those are my concerns. So that's what I'm objecting on. That's what it is. So I mean, if we explore it, we'll explore it and see what we come up with.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, Simon. Simon.
Apologies, Chair. I would echo Councillor Easterbrook's comments about the height and also the fact that it's the only 3-storey building, I think, in that area. And as it's an additional house onto existing property, I think for it to become equal to the largest in height of the area, I think is over egging it. I would certainly be supporting of an application that was 2-storey. I'm also concerned about the finish of the building. It looks like modern brick, which again I think is incongruous. So I think the bottom line here is incongruous with the local environment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Clark.
Yes, I think I go along with everything that's already been said, that it's incongruous in the street scene. The speaker mentioned about reasonable quality. I didn't obviously read that in the report, but if that is in the report, that to me would be a planning concern, reasonable quality. But basically everything, incongruous, the height, perhaps the scale of the building itself within the plot. I'd go along with all that. Okay. Although I didn't object, I only abstained, but I'm quite happy to add to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for them comments. Councillor Della Hughes, please.
The same concern really as Councillor Griffiths and Councillor Clark. I think the design and height is incongruous in the street scene.
Thank you for that.
That gives us something to go on. Can we come in a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So we've got a number of potential reasons for refusal there, which most of it's on relating to design and out of character. It would incongruous as come in there as well. So we can formulate them into consolidate them into one or two reasons for refusal. We also have it's been suggested that there's a highway safety issue. That's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to put into words, but if there is a member wishes to lead on this particular item, I'm quite happy to have a discussion on how we could take that forward. If you want to contact myself or Rodri, and then I've got to be very careful because the case officer is obviously hostile to this, because the case officer said one thing, Rodri said one thing, I've said one thing, so we are not quite, probably not quite removed from the situation, but we are here to provide professional advice and guidance at the same time. So,
Chair, I vote Jonathan Pratt to liaise. If he's...
Are you happy with that, Jonathan?
Yeah, that's fine. No worries.
You're happy there's no conflict of interest there?
No, no. Well, no. That would be my one. Could say I have declared a personal interest in this. I don't know whether my uncle has objected to this. I'm just conscious the objector there was representing residents of Boham Avenue. I don't know which residents he's talking about, so I'm just really edging on the side of caution on that one.
Okay.
So I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, we can have a discussion offline on that. Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so that goes off till next time on the basis we've discussed.
Thank you all for that. Right, next item on the agenda is appeals. I'm not going to ask Jonathan to go through it. Has anybody got any questions on the appeals?
Just note it.
Yeah, can we please note it then? Appeal decision, you can see that as well. If anybody got any questions on that one? No? Okay, thank you. We're going to item 13 then. Myself and the officers have been speaking. This is the formula that we want to take forward. We just want the committee to recommend what we've suggested.
I move, Chair.
Can somebody second it, please? Thank you, Alan. Right, all in favour?
A pertinent point on there, Chair.
Yeah.
I don't know who filled this out or whether it's a typo, but 10:30, 11:30 are completely incorrect.
It's 10 o'clock, depart Civic.
If we look at where we meant to be at 10:30, 11:30, we're completely...
Yeah. Jonathan?
Yeah, it's this is a suggested programme. It may be subject to change. We don't know. It could be could be other factors affecting how we can visit the site. What we're proposing, I'll run through it, is that at 9:15 or round about 9:15, we have a briefing for all committee members here in the chamber. So we advise members what you are going to see, what we are, what the issues are. It's to give you that sort of briefing in advance. It's quite a complex application because there's two sites to this application. Okay. So we to then depart from civic offices. We'll aim to have a bus, so all members will be on the bus. In fact, it's a sustainable way of travelling. I'm anticipating there would be a number of objectors and protesters, and when we've had these large-scale applications in the past, we have used we have bus members there because it makes it easier than members arriving individually in separate cars, who may then potentially be approached by members of the public and protesters, etc. So we're trying to keep everything as contained as much as possible. It's not a way of constraining debate or discussions about protecting you as members as well. So first visit would be to the Brinkethin, which is actually it is a long way around.
That was my point, Jonathan.
It's a good point. I had noticed that, and I put my hand up because I think I wrote this. So it will be to the solar farm element of the site. So that would be in Bryn Cethyn, and then the next element would be in Bryn Menyn, which is where the plant would be located if it's approved. So yeah, those two are a wrong way around. Or we could just do the plant site first, but it's whichever way is suitable for you as members and for the applicants as well. So because they will have to show us around, so that they'll have to be part of this as well. Then we come back to the civic offices. There should be enough time for a lunch break, and then we'll have the special meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it'll all be done on the same day. Now, the reason we bring in this to you, members, is that under our normal protocols, we can't just have a special meeting. We have to get committee to approve that process. And we also often need committee's approval if we want to change any of our protocols in terms of public speaking. So in this case, because there is a considerable amount of opposition, we're looking to extend the public speaking from 5 minutes to 10. And also the applicant then will have a similar window of 10 minutes to respond. So that's the fundamental change. It's all set out in the recommendation. I think we'd make a note that the timings are slightly, the timetable is slightly out because it refers to different parts of the development. But that's the sort of broad outline of the day. It could be subject to change, and of course we've not got a date yet for this. At the moment, just so members are aware, the application is subject to call-in. So Welsh Government have notified this authority that there's been a request to call in the application. That Welsh Government haven't decided whether to call it in or not. And for those people that are not aware of that process, a call-in is where the decision is taken out of the hands of the local authority and is given to the Welsh ministers to make that decision. Okay. Now they haven't made that decision yet, and they're waiting for the officer's report to be drafted, and then Welsh Government will make that decision at that time. At the moment, the authority is prohibited from approving planning consent. It can refuse planning consent if it was minded to, but it can't actually approve. So again, depending on the timings, what we may have is a date in the calendars. There may be a report which is mindful to either refuse or to approve. But then there'd be a process in between where Welsh Government decide whether that's going to be called in or not. We could bring the report to members and say if what members are minded to approve or minded to refuse. That could be a decision, but you couldn't actually approve it. And we could go back to Welsh Government and say members are minded to do this before they make that decision to call it in. But we try and keep it as clean as possible, so we won't try not to bring it before you until we've had a direction from Welsh Government. But that's where we are at the moment.
Okay. Thank you for that summary. We've got 3 speakers. Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for that explanation, Jonathan, as to why we don't have a date. As and when, if we get one. I just, can we have as much notice as we can? My daughter has just started school and I'm the delegated drop-off, so it's going to be difficult for me to get here at 9:15 in the morning, so as much notice for that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Nora?
Yeah, I know you've said, and obviously, you haven't got a date. Have you sort of any idea, is it going to be, 2 months? Any idea at all?
The reason I'm bringing it to you to this meeting is to get that approval. I'm anticipating we could have a date between now and the end of the year. But the next planning meeting, next development control meeting is in October. And that might not give members enough notice if we were to decide an October meeting. But yeah, it's possible that it could come to committee October, November, possibly, but I can't guarantee. There's still outstanding matters that the case officer is dealing with at the moment. So, okay. But yeah, the point is we will try and give members as much notice as humanely possible. We don't want to spring it on you. We fully understand that this is something we want to give due consideration to. So if it has to go on a bit further, then I'd rather do that than thrust it upon members without the reasonable notice.
Yeah. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, just one to Jonathan again. I remember quite some time ago when I think this first came before committee, or it was mentioned that you did say there'd be some sort of training, because obviously none of us, if it comes before DCC, would be any sort of specialist regarding this proposal. So I do remember you commented there'd possibly be a training session regarding it.
That's a good point, Councillor. I did suggest that, and I have put it to the applicant. Because they are the people that are promoting the scheme. I'm not aware that anything has been set up, but I'm also mindful as well that I don't want it to be seen that the applicant is leading members on either. But we have done it previously. We've had big wind farm applications, for example. The applicant has given members a bit of a briefing as to what's involved, and that's not unreasonable. It's factual rather than trying to coach members. But that's something I can look at. I'll discuss with the applicant and see what could be arranged prior to that meeting. It could be that we can put it on the training log, possibly. But I was also advised that there may well have been a training session for all council members as well on this process, but that hasn't come to fruition either at the moment. So, but I'll take that on board and I'll raise it at the appropriate levels. Thank you.
Okay. Right, so are we all in favour of the report? Yeah?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, agenda 14, the training log. As you can see, joint LDP update, we've had that. Developer conservation area is the next one. Then we got PEDU, rights of way, tree policy, Wellbeing and Future Generation Act, which is a good one. Have we got any more, Jonathan?
That's the subjects that have been suggested. Right. We'll try and put them into a fixed programme. There's quite a lot to get through there.
Yeah.
If members have any other items that they wish to have a session on, we can certainly try and take that on board. The difficulty with PEDU and the Wellbeing and Future Generations Commissioner is that it's difficult because they're outside speakers. We would probably going to be well in advance before we can get a date for them. I unfortunately had to put off the PEDU briefing because we had other items, but I think I can possibly speak to the Chief Planning Inspector and see if we can get that timetabled in. But the Wellbeing and Future Generations Commissioner is that's proving a bit difficult because I might have mentioned before that there's been a change in post there, and I think that my last understanding was that the Commissioner was trying to work their way around all local authorities at some point. So right. I can certainly raise that and look at that. But the other subjects are within our gift. We can do that internally. Yeah. But also, if we have to do a high bond session as well, we may have to squeeze that in somewhere potentially in October or. But we'll try and bring you a packed programme before the next Development Control Committee.
Yeah. Okay, everybody happy with that? Okay, before we finish today, I don't know if everybody's aware of it, and you wouldn't be probably aware of it, but I'm just going to mention it now because I think it's apt at this particular time to say something. But this is our solicitor's last DC meeting. He's officially retiring. He's been here 9 years, and he's been a stalwart of this committee, giving legal advice time and time again. 106's advices, whenever anybody wanted it, he'd always give his time. And Rod, on behalf of the committee, I would like you all the very best in your retirement, to have a nice retirement and relax.
Thank you very much.
Yeah?
Thank you. And that means I didn't have to bother about next committee at all.
So I'll formally close the meeting now and thank everybody for attending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.